Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Just Another Kill Team podcast, connecting kill team communities across the globe. If you're passionate about the tactical skirmish game that brings together strategy, lore, and creativity, you are in the right place. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and stay updated with our latest episodes. If you want to support the show, check out our Patreon. Your support means a lot to us. Follow us by using the social media links in the podcast description for all the latest news, and be sure to leave a review to let us know what you think.
We're here. We're live.
We're here with a misconnection. You know, we got Phil, the Glacial Geek, out here. We talked a little bit at Nova when we bumped into each other. You know, because the last time me and Phil had met was at the first Kill Team Open, which is like the beginning of my journey through Kill Team anyways. I mean, we were like, oh, let's do something after Nova. We weren't really able to get the chance, but bumped into each other again at Adepticon, and here we are.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys getting on here. Seriously, my biggest thing is always on the follow-up. So I was very happy that you guys were able to do that, because that my brain is like moves at 1,000 miles per hour, but never in one direction. It's like it's like trying to follow a gnat. So the gnat's never coming back. It's like once it's gone past, it's like, you know, that's its biggest problem, is remembering where he has to get back to. So I'm glad you guys like threw up some of that fly paper and got me back in. So
Yeah, I mean, like, Kill Team is definitely one of those interesting spots where part of the reason why we brought you on is because in the early days of Kill Team, you know, we have a lot of new listeners. It's a new edition of Kill Team, and in the early days of Kill Team, you were one of the bigger content creators in the space. I mean, obviously, the Kill Team content creation space is not massive by any stretch of the imagination. You know, we're getting like fractions of the numbers that 40K will, but back in the day, you were a big part of that Kill Team scene. Like, I watched a lot of your videos when I was trying to figure out what else was going on. Maybe you weren't the most competitive at the time, but you were actively doing videos, something that a lot of people, you know, just weren't doing.
Yeah, and you know, I started making videos of Kill Team back when it was the black and red box, when it was just literally just like a pamphlet.
This is like the points buy system in basically what is now known as, I think colloquially, like the first edition of modern era Kill Team.
Yes.
Because there was this old like Games Workshop White Dwarf supplement from when I was a kid, like when I was 18. But that's, you know, that was a long time ago. They had like a dude that was a chef, you know, it was like all narrative. But in the modern era, it was basically stripped down, pared down 40K with points buy. And that was, you know, you were there, Command Point was there, and oh my god, Byronid 40K was there.
Yeah.
Basically like in the early days.
Yeah, and it wasn't even, it was basically you had to have the codex from 40K to play, and it was, you know where they talk about, it's like, oh, it's like its own system, and then there was like the middle ground where they're like, yeah, it's its own game, but also like pretty much not its own game. Like, we're going to make the decisions based upon what we want to do for 40K.
Yeah, we had like a psychic phase. There was like, you did everything in phases, and then the only thing that wasn't, I think, was shooting. Shooting was done alternating.
Oh man, you're asking me to remember something past yesterday.
It was a weird patchwork rule set. Yeah. And that was like, I think I started playing there at work with friends, but there was not that much going on. And you were a big part of that early scene.
Yeah. And this was I think even 7th edition. I don't even think it was even before 8th edition. It was 7th edition, and it was literally you just had to buy them, and you had to buy them by the unit. So it's like you couldn't just like take like, you know, 4 of these guys, and like you had to buy the unit the same price that it cost in 40K up to 200 points, and it was just like play very small games, and that's what, you know, started me on that journey of Kill Team. You know, and then they came out with like their own bespoke game that like had different, you know, well, it was kind of like the same where you like would buy the individual models for it, and it was like basically like a diet version of 40K a bit, and then they went into like the bespoke one and started making you count in squares and rectangles.
You know, back in the day in Kill Team, people had to list build, and you know, people talk about right now 40K was an expensive, like Kill Team was kind of an expensive game to get into, but only because there's a lot of things that you had to buy. But like the old edition of Kill Team, where you would individually points buy models and loadouts, you could get some really wacky, kind of expensive loadouts, because you'd be like, oh, I'm gonna build Death Watch, I need 2 pistols on a dude with a jump pack, and now you're building a Marine with a left and right-handed pistol, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, kind of hard in modeling terms, and then a backpack, and then you do like 3 or 4 times for one loadout, and then you would like it was just like a crazy thing. So like building a team was a whole separate beast. Nowadays we're spoiled by like just buy the box and play the game. Like what are you doing here?
Like there was like a Lord of Contagion in the old one. I'm pretty sure I had like a 3 model Death Guard team that was all Terminators, and just like it was a crazy time. It wasn't good because
when they came out with Elite, that's what it was about. Like it was like all about like they came out with the Terminators, they came out with like the big models that you were playing there, and it was absolutely designed for you to play with your existing collection of 40K models in a different way. And like it was like basically it was like, oh, it's shorter 40K, like you don't have 3 hours to play, just play with your models that you already have for these armies this way. And that's what it was. It wasn't like, oh, do you want to become a kill team player? It's like, no, you're a 40K player, but you know, now you have like, you know, a wife and kids, and you have an hour to play on a Saturday night, like before you have to go to sleep to wake up the next morning. That's what it was. Like that's what it was designed for. And if you were just trying to buy in for just kill team, the number of kits that you would have to buy to like individually have all the different options for your thing was like, honestly, it was like it would have been prohibitive if you weren't playing 40K. Like it was like it was. I
think it kind of was prohibitive, honestly.
Yeah, they just made it very difficult to want to do it, and you know, and it also, because part of what I loved about the concept of kill team before like they actually made it something that you could do was the ability to just like build a kill team, get into and model and paint and play with like a faction that you just didn't want to invest in a 2,000 point or more army. And that to me is like one of the biggest draws as a hobbyist in playing into kill team, is that like it's like, oh, I want to build some Tau. I think it'd be fun to just kind of like mess around with them. I think it'd be cool. I don't want to have to build and paint and buy like a full 2,000 point list of Tau. I could do a kill team, and now I get the sense of, you know, building and playing with the aesthetic and doing that on a hobby side of things. And back then it was still, I would have had to buy like 5 or 6 different boxes. It's like, well, just play 40K at that point.
For one model each.
Yeah, exactly. For one model each. Exactly.
Yeah, I think my Eldar army from the oldest modern edition of Kill Team was 1 Striking Scorpion, 1 Howling Banshee, 2 Dire Avengers, a Wraith Guard. And I was like, I bought all of them individually on eBay, and I was like, is this... All right, I played one time. I was like, this is kind of neat. And then my friends hated it because the dicing was not very satisfying. And this is something that I think the move over to the modern edition of Kill Team that everyone is like into right now, that was like probably the biggest change of pace. And like, you're going to roll dice and the dice will actually do something. They'll tell a story. Whereas like before, you're rolling to hit, to wound, save, and then whether or not you died. So you're like 4 Markov chains away. And it's 1 die or 2 die, so a lot of the times you just kind of peter out in the middle, and then nothing happens, which was not very satisfying.
Yeah, that process works on the big style game because you're rolling with like an entire squad. So you're rolling 10 dice. So if you like, even if you're missing half of those, you're still at whatever 5 guys worth of dice are hitting and then wounding and all that stuff, and it goes down. Like, you know, it does peter out, but you still started with so many that statistically you're going to end up with something. Whereas with Kill Team, it was like you're starting with 2 dice and you're like, you know, good luck. Even if you're hitting on 2s, like you can still very easily just like get nothing happen at the end. And it's like, you're right. Like you said, that dicing system, it wasn't satisfying. And it also, even just building armies wasn't satisfying. Like it was purely designed to allow people to play 40K in less time. And you know, the game that we have now is very deliberately its own entity, and I think that's wonderful. I think it's wonderful because it actually gives you something that you can get into, as opposed to just being something that you could play because you don't have the time to actually do the thing you want to. You know,
and I think this is one of those spots where you might have some extra context, because you were originally like really big on the Kill Team on the YouTube side. I saw you had a lot of like really sick narrative boards. You know, back in the day, there was this huge block narrative board that you played on a couple times where people fell off the edge of the world a couple times.
Yeah, my friend Neil built those, and it was wonderful. Like that was his thing. He loved building terrain, and I was like, I will do whatever. Like I'll play on anything you can build. Like this is amazing. Yeah, it was fun.
But nowadays you've been doing more like painting stuff, and you've kind of ventured off into other brands. So have you taken the time to kind of noodle around in other game systems? Like how does the game of Kill Team that you remember kind of interface with the play space and experience that you've been interacting with now? Like, do you still look back on all of those times fondly? Do you still actually feel like this version of Kill Team actually is something kind of special and superior that games are still kind of searching for? Because there's so many games in the space right now. You know, like in my local hobby shop, we're getting sold the new Halo game. We've got Trench Crusade going. Like, there's so many other games in the space. But I personally still find myself returning back to Kill Team because I feel like there's something really nice in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think back on it fondly because I did enjoy playing. I've enjoyed playing Kill Team. I've always enjoyed playing Kill Team. It's a lot of fun. I like the idea that you can just like play and then re-rack if things go, cattywampus on you. Like that, to me, like those kind of games are great, which is why I find myself now being drawn to a lot of skirmish games. So, trying Warcry or like even Trench Crusade or things like that, or like Frostgrave or something like that, where it's like you have your small warband that you play. It's like a shorter period of time. Like I'm good on big army games. 40K is it. Like I don't have the interest to like invest the time and effort into building, painting, collecting, and then learning and then playing like a big huge kind of war game. For me, 40K scratches that itch. I don't feel the need to do anything else. For skirmish stuff, I feel that draw. I just feel the draw to play a skirmish game, which is why I feel that them creating Kill Team as its own bespoke entity, like it's its own thing, was one of the best ideas that they did. One of the best things they did, because like I said, back in the day, I liked playing Kill Team. It was fun to be able to do, but it was impossible to really reach out and try different armies or try different kill teams or try different warbands, because it was cost prohibitive to want to go expand into that. Like it didn't, like one of the best parts of playing a skirmish game is that you have a small warband, and if you have to basically buy an entire army's worth of models to play a warband, like that defeats the entire purpose of skirmish to me. So the direction that they've gone with this is just, to me, is absolutely the best way that they could have and should have and did.
Yeah, one box and just play is, I think, kind of a magical concept as far as GW goes. Like all of these, even for these other skirmish games, like when you go to War Machine, you're still list building, which means you still got to look at a bunch of models. You still got to be like, I want this and this and this. And while that is fun for a huge chunk of players, 40K, for all its popularity, allows you to just go into the Mind Palace for like 6 hours. But sometimes the game is not that fun, because you go in and you're like, oh, I got all my stuff blown up for like 30 minutes while my opponent cackled maniacally. Or like you hit the brick of Thunderwolf Cavalry with 4-up invulns, 4-up feel no pains, 4-up saves, and you're just like, I'm just wasting my time. But in Kill Team, you buy the box, and it's, maybe the balance is not always going to be perfect, but you always get to play.
Yeah, exactly. And I also feel like you don't have, there's also, because it's a skirmish game, because you have that where you're playing a game, even if the dice go like just completely off the rails and you're just like, you can't roll anything higher than a 2 and your opponent can't roll anything lower than a 6. Like, even if that happens, that game is over in 45 minutes, and I've never had a 45-minute game that I felt like I wanted my time back, And it's like at the end of that 45 minutes, you can either re-rack because you've got some more time, or you can be like, that was still fun. I got I'm moving off to the rest of the thing I'm doing today. But you got it in, and you don't feel like that was 3 hours of my life I'm never getting back, because I whiffed it on turn 1's shooting phase. And because of that, I left too many of my opponent's models alive, and then he just destroyed me. And then it was drawn out for the next 2.5 hours, and I felt like I couldn't do anything. You know what I mean? And like, don't get me wrong, I love 40K, and I've had wonderful games that have gone all the way to to the very bitter end, and it's like that last dice roll like decides it, and that's a ton of fun. There's like something about that builds up. But like, if you just have the time that you have like after work, or you just have the time that you have like on the weekends or the evenings, and it's like you're getting in this, like, you've got the short period of time a week that you can play your game. Kill Team it doesn't have that swing of emotions quite like they do in 40K, and it's just got like a consistently enjoyable level of game,
Yeah. And although, like, you pointed out just like all the different hobbies and the different factions, like, I've really, like, I would paint just because I had to when I was playing 40K, and now Like if I'm just like, all I need to paint is 6 Space Marines, I'll put a lot more time into those 6 Space Marines, and I'll be like a lot more like excited and proud about how they turn out. And it's just like it's really fun to just do one warband at a time, and like I feel like I've really been leveling up my painting lately, and just like feeling really good about it.
Heck yeah. And that's, again, like you said, like if you have to paint 6 Space Marines, you feel like you have a lot more permission to try different techniques, try different things, push it, like, adjust them and like make them very like your own. Whereas if it's like, I need to paint 50 Space Marines, you're like, I do not have, and like, I don't have the time to make these 50 Space Marines look unique, look different. Like I'm building them the way that the book says. I'm not adding any of those pouches because I don't need to. And then I'm just gonna like find the quickest way to get these guys painted because I've got a game on Saturday and I want to get those 10 points. Like that's what army painting ends up doing, is that if you it really makes you want to not try different things because you know that you can't do it over the course of 50 models. 6 models, absolutely.
Yeah, and then like with a 40K collection, if you're building 2,000 points worth of the same paint scheme, it's not as like artistically exciting as having like Felgor Ravagers and Hernkins Jaegers and like Intercessors, and then making like World Eater Legionaries. Like these are all such like super different projects and such a unique experience for each expansion.
Absolutely. And part of the joy of like doing this too and having it be its own thing is that you're encouraged to just do kill team, and you have like, you're just going to do the Hernkins Ravagers, you're going to do the Legionaries, like whatever it is that you choose, like you're building and you're painting them, and those are the only ones of that faction that you're going to do because that's the game and there's no other choices. But they all give you a sense of what it's like to build and paint of that faction. So if you built a Legionaries kill team and you're like, you know what? It turns out painting trim is like my favorite thing in the entire world. You can then be like, maybe this is my 40K army. You know what I mean? Like maybe that is, like maybe there's something wrong in your head and you like painting chaos trim. Like that's, everyone's allowed to be wrong in their own way, but but like it's a perfect way for you to segue into like the world of Warhammer 40K, like the universe, and not feel like that you have to make that huge decision right away because you're limited on what the kind of the choice you can make when you're getting into kill team. You make your first kill team, like you're not allowed to buy 2,000 points worth of models. You have the one box and you can just build and paint them. And if you really liked it, then you can go do some other stuff if you want, but you can't do anything with a kill team with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's wonderful. Like, I think that's great that it, like, you have these things and you can keep trying new things and you're like, yeah, that was fun, but I don't want to make 50 of those guys. And it's like, cool. Well, now you have a fully functioning army that does a thing in a game for you, and you can always play them in kill team, and you don't have to go and invest a 2,000 point army in it, And that to me, I love that they still have that back and forth with it while maintaining kill team as its own unique thing that doesn't encourage people to buy more, which is, again, I think pretty unique to in GW's world of things that they do. I think this is like one of the few games where they discourage you from buying more of the thing, even if you like it, because it's not going to do you any good. If I buy Chaos Terminators, I'm never going to be able to use them in kill team because the Legionaries are it. Like, that's what I got.
Not that we know of, anyways. I mean, they just announced, the 5-man, the most elite army in the game, 5-man Tyranid Raveners. I don't know when the rules are coming out for that, but who knows? It is kind of funny because I look at my like Imperial stuff from my kill team faction. I'm like, I kind of have like 3 squads in 40K, so you can get there in other ways, which is kind of funny. And I have watched a lot of people kind of like dip their feet in kill team and then see the tanks and they're like, oh, I actually like the tanks. And a lot of people will like play with the tanks like, actually I don't really care about the tanks. And I think the way I describe it with new people when I'm like doing the pitches for Games Workshop at like Gen Con and other places is like, do you care about the Space Marine entombed in a coffin fighting for the rest of the millennia in a tomb with a Redemptor? No? All right, then come play kill team. If that was cool and you wanted to play with a space mummy for eons and eons, then maybe go play 40K, because you're never going to get that scale creep. Like, we haven't even gotten like an official GW scenario where they gave us like a boss fight. They did have the small like side thing for Space Marine 2 tie-ins where they gave you a 3-man Angels of Death squad, and each one of them had like a special ability from the video game. It's like Titus could heal, and then the Gabriel had an Auspex scan, so it's like you gave no cover and no obscurity to an area on the map. So like they have those things, but we're still waiting for the boss fight where we pull in a full 40k tank and really spread the love.
Yeah, and like kind of along those lines, like you said about like not having, like from GW's side, like not having like the incentive to buy like more of their range that they have going on there. I have been very excited about the fact that a lot of the new Kill Team box sets that are coming out are with like teams that are like technically able to be used in 40k, but they're like their main build is for playing with them in Kill Team. You know, like you look at the what is the Blood and Zeal one that came out there, like those are not 40k units. Like they're not even designed to be 40k units, and it's like I guess they might give you rules to play with your toys in your big game, but like they were never designed to be enticing 40k. They were entirely designed to be Kill Team. And to me,
the Sanctifiers. The Sanctifiers are for sure not. They're not going to make it into 40k as like the Sanctifier squad. I think looking at Exaction Squad, which was like the Space Cops, you got like the 5-man shield unit, or in the 5-man shotgun unit, and that was kind of like that's probably where the Sanctifiers will end up. They'll probably end up as like some add-on for Sisters of Battle or Imperial Agents is just like dorks, but like. No, I don't think anyone really cares about the Dork Squad, but Goremongers, Jason's a recovering Khorne player, and I'm sure he says he has like 30 jackals, so he's like 30 more jackals. Like maybe that's not the most crazy thing in the world.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I guess you could use them as like as a like a model swap for your jackals, or you can have them in there, but like it's. To me, it feels like it's just like they were designed to be a Kill Team, and they're like previously it had been like it was like we're giving you the units that you want in 40k, but in a Kill Team box, and then everyone has to buy the Kill Team
Scorpions and stuff.
Yes, exactly, and like all the different ones that they've released first in like the Legionaries I think were first released in Kill Team, like the new Legionary bodies were first released in Kill Team, and then were released as like the models that you could use for Legionaries in 40k. And to me, the fact that they are making these an entire box that is not aimed at 40k players to buy, to me is the biggest sign that they really are believing in Kill Team as a game in and of itself. And I feel like that's amazing. I like to me, I like that because I feel like committing to the skirmish and not committing to like a entryway into 40k to me is heartening, and it means that they're probably going to be doing the right thing by the game. So
yeah, I agree with that. I mean, like I got into 40k in 8th edition. And like I was really excited about all the tanks and all that, and I played like the skirmish version Kill Team, just like porting over models I already had. And it was at first a little hard to like drift away from all the like the big tanks and the dreadnoughts and stuff. But then I was like, man, Kill Team is such a good game. Now I haven't even like looked back. Like I'm like on my to-do list is like go play a 1,000 point game, so I could just like bring out the big stuff for an afternoon, and then go back to Kill Team. But yeah, it's been just like, and like the community has been super awesome. Like just like meeting a ton of friends and new people and traveling for events and stuff. Like it's a great, it's bigger than the game.
Absolutely. And along those lines, to me, I feel like that's a big aspect of this hobby. And I'm about to get a bit more philosophical than just talking about what models are coming in a box. But like to me, this hobby, the thing that it does best and does better than video games, does better than board games, is it creates a big community that you can feel a part of. That you can feel like part of something bigger and welcomed into something bigger. Because like when you go to a convention, if like you go to Adepticon, you go to Nova, you go to whatever like of these conventions, even
just like your local tournaments, or that first time you go, it's like that moment when you walk outside of your kitchen table and you go into like somewhere else. It is a game where, because most people have painted their own models. When you go outside and someone else sees your models, it's not just about that moment of like, oh, that's like we're all going to play the same game. It's like, oh, this is your energy and your time. And maybe paint job's not the best, but you still got to be like, damn, good job. You like painting your model, because there are people that are playing with gray models. I like try to not disincentivize it, because I think, it's a big part of being able to feel comfortable to go outside. Because people have this big buildup in their minds of like, oh, everything's going to be perfect. It's like, man, you just go out and play and make friends, because like that is a huge part of this game that, as much as I like Magic the Gathering from a competitive side, it does not do as well.
Yeah. And I think part of it is that, to me, you can't play a war game like a kill team, a 40K, any kind of war game without being a partner with your opponent. Like you can't. You have to have a lot more back and forth. I feel like games like Magic, it's you come in and they are the opponent. You are not partners in a game. They are the opponent. You are trying to beat them. And you get into Kill Team, you get into 40K, because there's so much moving and looking and all these different moving parts that are involved in it. You have to be communicating. You have to be engaged with each other. You can't just shut off your opponent and play the game, because that's impossible. Like, you have to ask them what their toughness is of this model. You have to they have to be able to see your dice rolls, and you have to see their dice rolls. And even just from that, even just from the fact that you have to be like, I killed 5 of those guys, and they have to take those models off. Like, there is an innate interaction, a human interaction that's happening there that you have to have, that you don't need necessarily in like a game like Magic, where it's like everything's written on a card and I'm slapping down the cards, and then your dice is turned over more than mine, I win. And I feel like, because of the nature of what wargaming is, you have to have that interaction. The second, like you said, you get outside of your kitchen table and you're interacting with other people, you suddenly realize it's like, oh, my world, my community is not just me and my friend that comes over every Saturday to play. There's dozens of people at this game store. Or I go to like a small convention, there's hundreds of people at this convention. Or you go to something like LVO or Adepticon or Nova, and it's like there's thousands of people that are doing this. And while academically you might understand that, like, you might see online like hundreds of people on the Facebook group, or thousands of people in the Facebook group posting their models or posting their results or doing the game and whatever it is, going there and seeing just like a room full of nerds, be they a dozen nerds, be it 100 nerds, be it 1,000 nerds, there's something about that just gives you this like energy that like, I belong here, and they belong here, and we belong here. And there's I feel like this world right now is very much designed to isolate us, and not even just like because of what whatever the other person might be carrying up their nose, like sneezing on you, like it isolates us because we live so much of our lives just following what we have to do. We go to work, we do our job, we come home, we're exhausted, we eat, we go to sleep, we wake up, you go to work, you do your thing. And it's designed to like cubicleize you, even when you're outside the cubicle. And when you take your time that you have on the weekends or the evenings, and you go to these places where other people have taken their time to go to in the evenings or on the weekends, and you can see each other, you can recognize each other as the nerds that you are, and you feel a part of something. There's just something to that, especially nowadays, that is just so important and so good that this hobby does that other hobbies I just don't think do. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's our tagline, connecting communities across the globe, because I think that's something that, all of our listeners hopefully agree with us, because, we had the initial days of our podcast, we were talking mostly with TOs. Nowadays, we've been talking, more with competitive players, but it's nice to go back to our roots and just remember that, it's not just a game about smashing your opponents with the latest, greatest sanctifiers, which, I'm sure we'll see where they are. There were no stats for them this week, so maybe fine. Maybe this weekend it'll be fine. No one will win with sanctifiers, and it'll be overblown, and it'll just be all angels of death crushing people again. And we can ignore the internet for one more day. But sometimes you play the sanctifiers, or back in my day was the Pathfinders, or Jason's playing Phobos at Worlds, suddenly realizing that he has all the tricks because he did the best as Phobos at Worlds.
Nice. There we go. Perfect. I love it. Yeah,
But you can have a good time while doing all of those things and, playing the game. It doesn't have to just be win or lose.
Yeah, and like, if all you see of the other person is their screen name, it's a lot easier to just like talk a bunch of garbage at them and like put them down and like cut them down. When you're actually looking at someone eye to eye across the table, I have never had someone just like try to put me down across the table, because you just don't. Once you have that human interaction, you're like, and you're there to do the same thing, you're not going to try to insult each other. You're not going to try to like make fun of each other. You're not going to like try to pull them down. You're not going to be like, oh, go back to your mom's basement. Like, nobody does that, because you got the human interaction that's going on there. Whereas if you're just on a computer screen and the only thing you know about them is their tag or their voice, it's a lot easier to just like dehumanize them. And being in a place where you're automatically humanized by the other person also is fulfilling, because when you're on a computer screen, as much as they're dehumanized, you're also dehumanized. You're just a screen name, you're just a tag. And at a tournament, you or even at a game night or game day or whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a competitive situation. Any of those where you're going to a place where there's another human being across the table from you and you're sharing in the experience of rolling those dice, it makes you feel more human, and you can understand another person as a human being. And that's so good. It's so good.
Or you can even just experience another human being suffering by watching them roll ones and twos for an entire game. And you can be like, yeah, man, I've been there too. I think part of the reason why a lot of these other digital mediums have taken off, streaming is a big one that, for all its faults, 40K is just straight up like unwatchable in a stream format for me. It's just like 4 hours of people just talking about dice. But like when you're there doing it, it's a very different experience, because you're like, man, I really feel for you when you've rolled, well under average. But you play enough probability games, you're going to know that it's not always going to go in your favor. And like a lot of these conversations about like they hit on threes, so clearly you're going to get enough hits where you kill someone. You should, but you never know. Like Space Marine armor in Kill Team is definitely not going to always keep you safe. And Jason lives and dies by this, by famously telling everyone that you'll get one person with a melt-a-gun, but then once the melt-a-gun is dead, you're going to have to deal with the rest of the Marines normally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the way that most people deal with that with me is just wait till I roll those ones and twos, which are gonna happen.
Yep.
So, but then again, like you said, like if someone's dice are going poor, they've had a bad day, like their army's just kind of like, if things are not going the way that they should have, would have, wanted to, like we've all been there as gamers, and you can see that, and you can like, you're not going to be like, oh, get good, skill issue. Like you're going to be like, I feel for you, dog. Like that was me 2 rounds ago. Like, or that was me last week, man. That's the way it happens. And then at the end of it, you shake hands, and you go on as 2 human beings that now have that shared experience of that game. And it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So you moved recently, right? Have you connected with a local game community, or are you still kind of learning where to go to get some games in your new local?
Oh, yeah. So I started the channel when I was living in Alaska, which is why I was the Glacial Geek, and that made sense there. There was a lot of glaciers up there. Then I moved to Savannah, Georgia, where there were far fewer glaciers than there were up in Alaska. And but at that point I've already had the logo and the branding, and it's like, well, you can't do anything about that. So I got into the scene there, and I had my local game store, Savannah Lion Games, in Pooler, Georgia, which is it's like basically Savannah. It's like the same thing there. And that's where I would go. Like that was my local. That was what I went to. I'd do tournaments there, and then I was very much in the scene there. I had gone up here. I now moved to Atlanta, Georgia, which is like 4 hours away or whatever.
So the World Championship of Warhammer later this year.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm already there. I already got my golden ticket, which was buy a house.
Well, this is a different kind of golden ticket there.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I'd come up here to Atlanta for a couple tournaments and stuff, and I knew about like certain game stores, like Gigabytes up here is like a big one. I'm still in the process of like trying to get back into it, because it's like, when you move, there's like a whole lot that's going on, and then trying to get back into doing, my channel stuff, and then also trying to do some other things. It's like it becomes hard to like get yourself into the scene. I definitely need to. There is like there's a couple different stores that have like a scene that they have here, and that's what I'm trying to get myself into it. But at this point, I get most of my games by going to conventions, because I'm part of the Army Painters factory team, and they send me to a bunch of the big conventions and then some other ones, and it's like that seems to be like right now where I'm getting most of my gaming in, is going to like the big conventions and playing things and meeting and seeing people there. So I'm you can kind of see a little bit of the background. My studio here, it's like the extra bedroom that I've turned into my space. Is like, it's like me by myself, like, with my little space dolls.
I'm wrong with a couple space dolls. We're a bunch of grown men here listening to a podcast about other people talking about their space doll.
Exactly. So it's like, let's be honest, it's like I got my little plastic spacemen that I like to paint up and make look cool, and it's there's just something to it. But kind of along those lines, which is why I love this hobby, is that like you can have that, like I don't feel like hobbies like Magic and stuff are as open to you not having the time to go play the games. Like if I can, you can find your time to go, like, to spend an hour or whatever just like building and painting a model, or like reading up on the rules, or doing like reading a book or something like that in the universe. To me, this hobby is so unique because it gives you the ability to have like your alone time that feels fulfilling in the game, in the hobby, while still having the availability to go out and, like I said, meet the community and get in the community, engage in the community, and have fun with other human beings as human beings. And like whatever your availability is, this hobby has a way for you to engage with it in a fruitful way. Like, you can say, I guess you could say the same thing with Magic, where it's like you can buy boxes of Magic cards and then like open them and then like make a deck and then never play it. And it's like, that doesn't feel as fulfilling as like building and painting a model that then looks cool, that like at the very least is like something cool to sit on your shelf, or like, on your desk with you, that, you could bring to work and just have up in your cubicle. No one's going to bring their Magic deck and put it up on a shelf and be like, that, whew, let me tell you, that deck, it's cool, like, and no one walking by your desk is going to be like, oh wow, cool deck, like, no.
Wow, look at that piece of cardboard. You're like, that piece of cardboard is $300. They're like, whoa, that's $300. Like, it is. At least with Warhammer, your toys look expensive, even though the market resale is generally not going to be $300 of plastic.
Instead it's, I paid $300 for that.
I paid for the privilege of painting it myself, I'll have you know.
Exactly. Yeah, I paid to do half the labor of whatever this was to make it a thing.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, that's part of the magic, I think, of the overall experience, and part of the reason why I like trying to get people to play Warhammer to begin with. For like anyone who's trying to do the pitch for their friends on how you build these kinds of communities, it's like, do you want to play a competitive game? It's a competitive game, but it's also a spot where you can just sit and listen to something that sounds cool while painting something. There's not a lot of hobbies that really encourage you to fully kind of commit yourself into all the different parts of it. Like, you can be a music listener, you can go to events, you can listen to music, you can try making music, but it's not really the same unless you get someone else to listen to your music, which is a little hard. Whereas like on wargaming and board gaming, with board gaming, you can learn the rules, but you're not building the game. You're just kind of interpreting the rules with your friends. But in 40K, once you bring out all of your toys, because, for a lot of the tournament organizers who are looking to try to build up their own scenes, a lot of the times you kind of have to have a couple of armies. A lot of people who've done the tournament organizing starting thing, who've been on this podcast, they talk about being there week to week, with like their 2 sets of Angels of Death and Space Marines. Like, I just want to play with my minis, and if you want to play with me, well, I'll show you how to play, and it'll be cool. We'll shoot some bolter shells at each other. I'll tell you about the little rocket-propelled bolters that are blowing chunks out of your dudes, superheated plasma, firing out power fists, crackling with energy, squishing people's heads when they hit the 5/7. But it can also just be, I just want to sit there and paint. I have a lot of friends who play the competitive side, and now they're painters. One of them just won a Golden Demon. He was the podcast visit like way back, but he won a Golden Demon recently. And there are so many different ways to engage in the hobby, and there's so many different kinds of communities where if you really want one and you have a local game shop that's not supporting you, like you can be that person, sit there week by week, and maybe it doesn't feel that fulfilling at first, but you kind of have like 2 or 3 other regular people that just want to sit out and hang out. It's way better than just drinking all the time at a bar.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like you said, like there's so many ways that you can engage with this game. And that's also another big reason that I feel like there's a big need for skirmish games, is that like the investment that you have to make into a skirmish game to create a community of it is far lower than you would if you want to do like a full scale like 40K. Like if you're trying to come to 40K and you need to have like an entire table's worth of terrain, you have to have 2 fully painted 2,000 point armies. Like that is like a major commitment. And if nobody wants to do that with you, that can feel a little bad,
Well,
but,
it's like SOL, like it's
exactly.
much harder to bootstrap.
Exactly. Whereas like a kill team, like you buy that like the starter set, you get a one like small like 20 by 30 inch board full of terrain, and you're good. Like now you have a way for 2 people to get into the game, to get into the hobby and play and enjoy, and then grow from there. You don't have to commit your entire self and your entire like mortgage to building and painting 2,000 point armies to try to entice someone to play a game. It's just so much easier with that, And then if like the 2 of you get into Kill Team, really like it, and then you really get into the world of 40K and you really get into everything else that's going along there, and all of a sudden you both decide like, maybe we can try 40K, then you're building and painting one army for yourself because the other guy presumably is going to be doing the same thing. So
yeah. But you haven't really found your area in Atlanta. You had your own local play groups. What did you ever get the sense that when you were hopping from community to community, there were like differences in the communities that, was the Alaskan wargaming community different from the Georgian one?
Absolutely. And it's funny because up in Alaska, this hobby was perfect because it had a lot of things that really encouraged you that were like you had to be kind of inside for, and a big part of the year up there you were inside, like you had to be, because it just got too cold and too dark to do anything else. So if you were home alone, you can build and paint your army, and then it gave you that reason to get like out of your house to go and play the game and go to the game store and engage with other human beings, so that you didn't get stir crazy and didn't get your cabin fever. So up in Alaska during the winter time, it was huge. Like the RTTs would always sell out. Like you were packed with tons of people at like in the gaming, like on game nights and game on the weekend. And then during the summertime, when everyone could go outside, it was like they just stopped doing RTTs in the summertime. Like there was none, because you couldn't get people. You couldn't pay people to stay inside, because you're like everyone's like, oh, I'm going outside now because there's actual sun and I want to be outside when I'm not.
Like permanent sun too, right? Alaska's like far north enough where you have basically just dusk. Like when I was in Iceland a couple years or a ways back, it was like 4 hours of like 7 o'clock, and then the rest of the time is just like bright sunlight, so your brain just doesn't turn off.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the sun in where I was in Anchorage, and that's not even like the most northern part of Alaska. It was far enough north that on June 21st, like on the summer solstice, you would have 4 hours of quote unquote dark. That was when the sun would dip below the horizon. It would still be like twilight, and then it would come back up 4 hours later, and then it's sunrise and sun's out there for that time. Then again, the opposite was true in December, where like on December 21st, the sun would quote unquote be out for 4 hours, when it would just like barely go above the horizon, then go back down. And if you blinked or like in line at the DMV too long, you missed it.
Whereas like, in like normal places, because now you're in Atlanta where the weather is normal theoretically. So
yeah,
do you find the communities in Alaska to be friendlier because like during the winter there's less to do? How did was there like a lot of friction sometimes and just like getting people to come out because it's cold and dark? I'm kind of curious because I know that in different communities, there's like different skews of people. I think in these smaller towns, like in Oklahoma or Texas, where there's like the tyranny of distance, people have to spend like an hour and a half to get out. It's harder to get those small tournaments going. So I'm kind of curious if Alaska had some of those same problems and if those problems are easier in Georgia just because there's, more people.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know if I've just been lucky, but the communities that I've been a part of have been great. And I think part of it is that there's that understanding, like if you're going to invest your time into building and painting an army, a kill team, or whatever it is, like you have that level of respect for the other person having done the same thing. And you have that understanding that you are another human being who has devoted their time and effort into doing this thing that we want to do. And I think innately right off the bat there, you have a level of respect that you're going to have geniality. And I think the fact that war games require like actual human interaction and you can't just get away with like being a dick because otherwise no one's going to want to play with you. Like you have to be nicer to be a part of these communities. And because of that, if you have a community, they've been great. Like I absolutely loved my Alaska community. I miss it, every single day, but I absolutely loved my Savannah community as well. And I miss it every day, and I can't wait to get into my Atlanta community so that when I probably inevitably move again, that I'll miss it every day. You know what I mean? Like to me, I have yet to really find and get into a community with wargaming that wasn't friendly and welcoming, just because I think its nature requires that of you. Otherwise, if you're not, you're out. Like no one wants you to be there, and you're not going to be there long because people just, you can't find the people to play with and be a dick for, So.
Yeah, it's actually so funny to hear you say that because I like when I first got into the hobby when I was like 16, back in like the 2000s, it's like I would go to these stores and it would just be like gigantic nerds who just like blow our shit up, and I was like, this sucks, dude. We were like retreated back into the doldrums. We're like, I'm not going back outside. But I think as an adult, it has been very interesting to see that is very much like not the vibe of the modern day nerd, because there's very little reason to gatekeep. I mean, maybe back in the day when 4chan was the only way to interact with the larger game at large, maybe it was fine to be a nerd and rude to people, but like really, like part of the reason why me and Jason love this podcast and interacting with people from all the way around the globe, China, Japan, Europe, Russia even, is that for all of our misgivings in the world, there's still some stuff that we could just hang out and have fun doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is part of the maturing of nerddom, if I'm being honest. Like there was, even when I first cut my teeth as a nerd way back in the day, back when dinosaurs used to roam the earth, like it wasn't cool to be a nerd. And like I would play Vampire the Masquerade role playing game with my friends, and like it wasn't cool. Like straight up wasn't cool. And I think that there were a lot of nerds that would do these things that weren't cool, and they would get a chip on their shoulder, so that when other people would come in and like show any kind of interest, there was a reaction of like a defensive reaction, which is like they're probably just here to make fun of me, or like it's like, oh well, now who's coming begging back for the information that I have, and they had those kind of like prickly reactions to other human beings, which drove people away. And I think that eventually there were enough other nerds that like it became a bigger and bigger thing that now you don't have to feel like ashamed to be a nerd. Like it's cool to be a nerd. You have, comic book movies making billions of dollars. You've got like even just Games Workshop.
Yeah, but we got Astartes 2. We got Astartes 1. We've got all these sorts of media coming out. So
you've got Henry Cavill working on making a space or like a Warhammer 40K like thing with Amazon. Like it like even the small niche of nerddom that is like our world here, like is becoming far more mainstream. And at a certain point, you can't gatekeep it, because it's impossible to, because it's like there's no gate. Like the walls are down, there's no gate, and you have two choices: either you welcome that and you become part of what makes this so great, or you be a dick and you get run over by the horde of people having fun past you and ignoring you. Like that's what it comes down to. So you kind of have a choice. Like you can't get away with being the prickly nerd anymore because there's too many other people that they have the option to play with. Like if you were the only person I could play with and you were the prickly nerd and I wanted to play, I guess I would have to play with you because that's the only one that's left. But if I have 5 other choices of people to play with and you're a prickly nerd, I'm not going to play with you. I'm going to play with the other 5 people. And at a certain point, that guy who's a prickly nerd suddenly realizes that the other 6 people aren't playing with him. They're just playing with each other. And he goes, oh, well, I want to play. I guess I have to be nice. And that is what creates the communities that there are now, is that, people have a choice of whether or not to play with you anymore. Like back in the day, you probably didn't. There was like 3 people that played 40K. And like, if you didn't want to play with one of them, like odds are you're going to run into those days when the third guy isn't around, but nowadays, if there's 15 people playing there, you don't have to play with the idiot, like with the jerk, you know what I mean? Like you just don't have to do it. Like you can just play with the other people that are nice to you, that you have fun with. And I think that's what I think is just the availability of cool people being cool as an alternative to prickly people being jerks, like means that the prickly person being a jerk doesn't have as much power as they used to.
Yeah, I mean, I can pretty much agree with that. Like, part of the reason why it's fun to play Kill Team is in New York is there's just a lot of interesting people that want to play with the game. There's painters, there's modelers, there's sculptors. Jason's out here in Minnesota pushing along the game, being swell and adopting like his group. Basically, our last guest by the time this comes out was Cooper, who's on the younger side, but he played basically the Gauntlets run of Jason's entire Minnesota crew and had a great time doing it.
Yeah. And I mean,
we've got a good crew here.
That's awesome. And I mean, that's huge. And like that, like having a good crew is what is what's necessary for creating like a community. You can't, like I said, you can't be a jerk and expect a community to form around you, because people have options. People have other things they can do. And if you're not going to be welcoming, like, and people think that like a welcoming means that you have to let the other person win. And like, that's not true. Like some of my best games of 40K or Kill Team have been against people who have just like absolutely mopped the floor with me. But because they're a cool person, because we're having fun as human beings interacting, I can enjoy the game, and I can think of it as like an amazing game. Like I've played multiple games of Warhammer 40K against John Lennon, who's possibly one of the best 40K players that's ever been. And I thoroughly enjoy every ass kicking that he has given me, because he's a really good person, and he's a lot of fun to play with, and he knows his game, which is why he's very good at it, but he's not a dick about it. You know what I mean? And I think that means a big difference. So like you said, like that young guy can go around and really enjoy the game that he's going through, playing against like the gauntlet of badassery that is your crew, and still come out on the other end and be like, that was fun.
It definitely helped that he pretty much mopped the floor with everyone.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, there you go. We've got a prodigy, I guess, is what it comes down to. Yeah, I guess being a prodigy also helps in getting you into a community.
Yeah. I actually let's see, what was it? Yesterday was the first time I ever started to try to get into streaming Kill Team games, which I'm planning to noodle around with more coming up. So nice. For anyone that wants to tap into that, I created a Twitch stream, which is called Twin Cities Kill Team. There's no spaces or anything. And I'm just going to keep on horsing around with it and try to like stream our monthlies and stuff like that. So shouting that out real quick. But yeah, streaming Kill Team games has been pretty fun. I literally just put my phone on a tripod that is... it's using the continuity camera with my MacBook, so it's just like hooks up wirelessly, and then it looks down on the screen, and then I put the same microphone that I clip onto my shirt for the podcast, and I just put one on each player, and then you can hear us talk. And it's been a simple, fun little thing.
Perfect. Yeah, and, that's great.
Phil, you've been doing YouTube, a little bit more YouTube as of late, talking with Army Painter. That's where I bumped into you at the Adepticon booth first. talk a little bit about what you've been up to. You're not doing as much competitive kill team content creation or 40K content creation, but you have been doing kind of your own thing, really focusing on, upping your painting game and kind of spreading the love of painting, which is just as much a part of our hobby as, meeting people, being swell, and doing all this other stuff. So, Jason talked about his Twitch stream. I'm sure you've got some stuff that you want to talk about a little bit too.
Of course, as all good content creators will do, they'll be able to name drop their stuff at a moment's
the drop of a hat.
Exactly. Or the drop of a hood if you're the Glacial Geek. Oh, anyway, I thought that was awful. Anyway, but so I'm for anyone who doesn't know who I am, I'm the Glacial Geek. I've been doing YouTube now for 10 years, which is mind-boggling to me. But I've done everything from battle reports. Started out as doing battle reports and like purely battle reports. Then I started doing some like talking head stuff, and I realized as I started doing more and more that like what I found myself drawn to is finding the joy in the hobby, because it can become, especially when you're doing content, when you're creating content, it can very easily skew into the like, this is now a lot of work and you're just doing it and it becomes a grind. And it's like, this hobby is meant to be fun. And that's the reason we do it. You know what I mean? Like, because even on like from a content creator, like there's dozens of people who know who I am. You know what I mean? Like I'm not Mr. Beast. Like I'm not like, I'm not doing a video game channel where like I've got millions of people watching what I'm doing. You know what I mean? There's no one in our sphere that has like a million people doing it. You know what I mean? Like that's just the reality of the world that we're in. So if I'm not going to be doing it for just like the millions, like you got to find the joy. And I realized that, and that's why I started focusing on the things that I really wanted to do, which was finding the community, encouraging people to be
a part of the community.
Exactly. Be a part of the community.
It's not just about like what the hobby can do for you. It's like going outside and interacting with those other people and showing off your toys, in your case, sharing your painting techniques or, spreading the love of, army painters, sick ass speed paints.
Heck yeah. And that's all it is like finding ways to enjoy this hobby and then making sure that you spread that you bring that joy to other people. And that's what it is all about to me. And I realized that's what was important. I also started like, I'm a one-man band. The Glacial Geek is literally just me. It's not like I don't have a team. I don't have anyone else I work with. Like all my battle reports were, with the generous help of friends that wanted to, build terrain like Neil did for those cool like towers, or people that were building and painting armies to play me in the games. And I wasn't able to keep up with the tabletop tactics of the world or the play on tabletops of the world. Like I wasn't able to keep up with all that. And I realized it's like I was fighting a losing battle at that point. And I was like, well, if that's the case, then why don't I take a moment to step back and go, what do I find enjoyment? And what I find enjoyment doing is exploring what this hobby has, because I realized that I only played 40K and Kill Team, and that was it. So now I've been wanting to like see other games. Like I went and I played last Nova. I went to the Warcry GT. I learned Warcry, built a Warcry army or a warband, and played in the Warcry GT because I was like, why not? Like, let's give it a shot. And I had a ton of fun. I've done the friendlies at a bunch of events because it's like a one-day thing that you're just having fun playing the game and like, again, finding the joy in the hobby. So that has become to me what I feel drawn to. And part of it is also like pushing myself with painting, because I became part of the Army Painters Factory team, which is their sponsored content creators. And they don't want to tell us what to create. They basically, the Army Painter was like, we want to be able to support people that we believe in doing what they do. And that's what the factory team is. So it's like a bunch of people that they've said, we like what you're doing. We want to help support that by sponsoring what you do. And being around those people like Sam Lenz, who's like a golden demon winner, or Uncle Adam from Tabletop Minions, or even like their studio painters, like these are people that are just like very inspiring and awesome people that make you want to do more. And part of it was wanting to do better with the painting. So I found myself being drawn to push myself with painting. And then it all kind of culminated recently where I built and painted a whole new Emperor's Children army for Adepticon in the matter of like 3 weeks. With like, it got to the point where like I'd wake up and my thumbs would be throbbing like from working on it so much. And it got to the, like at one point my thumb my phone wouldn't recognize my thumb, like on the
like
fingerprint
off your fingerprint.
Yeah, exactly. I had to use my other hand to like open my phone for a couple days. I was like, oh boy, I've done it. But I had so much fun doing it because I had pushed myself to paint like my painting to like another level, that I was able to bring that together into this army and just come to Adepticon with this like paint, like this army that I was very excited about, that I was very proud of, and be able to show it off to other people. And then that, like, I realized that's what I love to do. I love to go to these events and like be excited and have fun. And like that, like it's like a shocking thing, or it's like, whoa, you do this hobby for fun? It's like, yes, I do. And I think that everyone should do it for fun. You know what I mean? And whatever that fun might be, is it finding like the best loadout for your kill team so that you can just pummel your opponent at like the GT into the ground and make your way to worlds and just like go away with like the world championship. If that's what brings you actual joy, that's awesome. You know, but if pursuing that is just frustrating you, it's making you upset, it's making you angry, you need to be able to take a step back, do that self-reflection and be like, hey, maybe being the world champion is not what's bringing me joy. Maybe just playing with my friends locally is what brings me joy. Maybe building and painting every single kill team is what brings me joy. Maybe it's just like building 3 different versions of like a legionary kill team in like 3 different legions color schemes is what brings me joy. Like, find what it is that makes you happy, and if you do that, it's better than winning worlds, because you're on a daily basis going to be in a better place and a happier place, and then you're going to be a better member of the community because you're going to be happy, and your happiness is then going to be spread to other people. And that, to me, is the essence of community building, is being happy with other people and being happy together. So that's what it's become to me. So that, like, the channel now is like devolving, some may say, into a place where it's just like just finding happiness. You know what I mean? And and I feel like there's a place for that, because I feel like it can become very easy to get lost in like, oh, well, I didn't win a golden demon, therefore my painting is garbage and I'm not going to do it. Or I didn't win world championships, therefore what's the point of even playing? Like, it becomes very easy to be like, well, if I'm not playing like at the spear point of everything that I'm doing, then what's the point of doing it? It's like, it's a dang hobby. That's what it's worth doing. It's like it in and of itself is worth doing. Like, all the accolades and all the achievements that you can get from it are maybe the cherry on top. The true, like, actual, like, Sunday is having fun with you and your community that you build and that you're a part of. So,
spoken very excellently.
Yeah,
I don't really have
huge.
much else to say on my part. You know, that seems like the big point.
Yeah, I mean, that is really huge. That's like, I mean, that should be everyone's goal in the hobby, is just like find and share happiness. I mean, that's like the whole reason that we like play a game, is like to have fun. And like, you know, for just like, if you can be the powerful person that can like be the leader and the spreader of good vibes, then like you can spread that to someone else so that they also will be like a leader who can share and spread good vibes. And that is what makes the community great. I feel like Kill Team is just like generally really just a great community for that. Like, everywhere I've gone, I've just met like tons of awesome, friendly people and met a lot of friends all over the place. And like, you know, I'll go to Adepticon and meet some people I've never met before, and like, boom, immediate friends, because like we love the same game. Like, went to the World Champs, met people from all over the world, just like, boom, instant friends.
Yeah, and I think that there's like this misconception. Yeah, and I feel like there's this misconception that like you can only have fun if you do the hobby in a particular way. And that is where the most like unfun happens, is like telling yourself or other people how to enjoy this hobby. If you just want to read the books and just do lore, like, absolutely just do that. That's totally fine. Like, that's okay. If you basically treat Warhammer 40K like Game of Thrones, and like that's what you want to do is just read the books and like be all about it. Or if you want to treat it like like Lord of the Rings and just like know every single thing that like that these particular characters did, then 100%, if that's what brings you joy, you are absolutely doing the hobby right. If you want to play a game and you just want to bring the most like weird like off meta list and just play with that every Saturday because you really liked how those models looked and you wanted to paint them up really grad, do it. Freaking do it, because that is absolutely having fun. If you want to really try hard and you find joy in like really parsing out like how like the best battle tactics and like what your list needs to be, the loadout to go in there and go to worlds and and do your best, absolutely, that is the way to do it. And you can't tell other people how to enjoy this hobby because they are the only ones who are going to know themselves what is bringing them that joy. And there's this misconception that like, oh, well, every tournament player is a sweaty nerd and I don't have time for like the tryhards. And it's like, I have had just as many tryhards in friendly games on a weekend at a store than I have at a tournament. I've had wonderful games at a tournament that I've just been laughing the entire time going all the way through, and they've been very close and a lot of fun, and we've just been enjoying each other's company as human beings. All it comes down to is if you are there to have fun and you are there to enjoy what you are doing, and you can give that to another person and you can get it in return from them, that is the essence of what is going to make this game great. And this is why this game is so great, in my opinion. So, like you said,
agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, that's
hopefully,
me. Ambassador of good vibes.
All the listeners for this week, hopefully this segue into a little bit more of the philosophical end on why we're all here playing Kill Team has been fun.
Philosophical. The philosophical.
Oh.
Everyone wants to catch, Phil, the Glacial Geek, on his YouTube channel. He's been doing more painting stuff recently, and Jason's been touching up his painting. So follow on for army painter tips and maybe some other stuff sometimes. Absolutely. And Phil, I just want to say thanks for coming on and chatting with us about
thank you guys for
communities around the globe and kind of a little bit of the early journey of Kill Team and where you're at right now as maybe not the most competitive player, but still someone, pretty deep in the hobby.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for having me. Like, I think that, this it's incredible what you can do by building a community. I think what you guys have done is awesome. Like the fact that you're bringing people, like you said, around the world together to just appreciate a single thing that we're doing together is great. And I think that it's hard to overstate the importance of what it is that you guys do when you build with this. So thank you for having me and welcome me to do this. And like you said, I've been around this for a long time, and I think it's about having fun. And I think you guys are doing a great job as ambassadors for that, because I don't think, every time I've seen you, you've always had a giant smile on your face. And I mean, that's the goal, right? That's the goal, is to have a smile on your face every time that you go and interact with this hobby. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Sweet. Awesome. And with that, we're wrapping it up. As always, listeners, thank you for listening until the end.